Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And we are here on January 26, 2017 for episode 163. And we got to talk about Roger Goodell today. He said some things that wouldn't qualify as facts, but they would probably fall under the category alternative facts. We'll just say that. He
basically, look, man, like, I get the thing with Goodell. Like, he's not going to be here to be the distraction. He kind of was that for a solid year and a half or something like that, probably 2 years. So I get that he just kind of wants to, like, deflect everything and be like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. We're great, kind of thing, because, well, you know, he had an interview and, you know, obviously people are going to ask him some questions, right? They're going to talk to him about one of the big things that's happening in a couple of weeks, Super Bowl, and one of the possible outcomes was the Patriots winning. And if the Patriots win, that means Tom Brady will win. That means Bill Belichick will win. That means Robert Kraft will win. That means the Patriots is an organization which has kind of been in some turmoil with Goodell over the last, call it 2 years plus. You know, you have the potential of giving him and that whole team the trophy. And you just went to court with the people for the last 2 years, basically to prove your point that your suspension was justified. So they asked him, you know, if this happens, is that going to be weird for you? Is that something that you don't necessarily look forward to doing? And, well, Jeremiah, what did he say? Was he a fan of it?
He's okay. Okay. Let me fast back here. Let me rewind here a little bit. Okay, basically, Roger Goodell said it's not going to be awkward for him to hand the trophy to Tom Brady. He said not for a second. Tom Brady's one of the all-time greats. He's been for several years. You know, he's on potentially winning his 5th Super Bowl. He's a surefire Hall of Famer. But he's also asked about Robert Kraft. Remember, Robert Kraft had an interview with the New York Times, I believe January 19th, and says that the league really messed it up. And I think they really messed it up badly. And Goodell said he wouldn't be doing his job if someone wasn't happy with the decision that he was making or if what the league made. And, you know, he said Robert and I are going to disagree on some things. So, you know, on and on. Basically said Roger Goodell said, you know, this whole thing's behind him. And remember, Goodell wasn't even in Foxborough this year.
He hasn't been in Foxborough in a while.
He hasn't been in Foxborough in a long time. I don't know, about a long time. But he decided to attend the NFC Championship game in Atlanta when the Falcons were taking on the Packers. And remember, that was the final football game at the Georgia Dome. Well, NFL football game, that is. And this is what Goodell said in his interview with Colin Cowherd. He said, we had 2 great games. I was in Boston 2 years ago for the divisional and the championship games. I tried to get to as many stadiums as I can. We have 2 great games and got to choose, and frankly, the focus should be on the players, the coaches, and the great game. That's the way it was this weekend, the way it should be, which, you know, it should be about the players. If it becomes more about the commissioner, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I get, well,
and I get the storyline.
Yeah, and also, what's he going to say? Like, you know, like I said, he was a human piñata for the NFL for the past 2 years. He's kind of probably done being that, and he's probably just like, you know, look, you know, paraphrasing, like, look, man, like, it's fine. Like, you know, this is what it is. We did the stuff, but, like, you know, at this point, whatever. It's probably how he feels at this point, which I totally get. Like, you don't want to keep bringing up old stuff all over again, especially because this year has been, I mean, not the best year for the NFL. Like, you know, the ratings were down. You had, you know, a lot of people, you know, get hurt. You had Derek Carr at the end of the year kind of leave that bad. You had the playoffs this year outside of, 1 or 2 games not be really competitive and good. You had Thursday Night Football, which hasn't necessarily been something that people like to talk about, and they asked Goodell about that too. They basically talked about Thursday Night Football.
Yes, they did.
You know, and they're like, you know, what do you think about Thursday Night Football? And what did he say about Thursday Night Football, Jeremiah?
Roger Goodell said the quality of games is better on Thursday nights. And My reaction.
How, Sway? Like, it's
my reaction to this was alternative facts. Again with the alternative facts, Roger Goodell.
Look, here's the thing with Goodell. What's he going to say? Oh, yeah, Thursday sucks. Like, he's not going to do, like, going to try and massage and everything else like that, and I get it. The problem comes when, you basically have a situation where he's not going to say anything. He's going to deflect all these things, and that's fine. He can deflect all he wants. He can do all these things, and that's probably what he should do. Like, he's not going to be up here just to basically say, like, yeah, I'm still mad at Tom Brady, and yeah, Thursday Night Football stinks. He's going to try and make everything look good, but like we've talked about in the past, like I talked about yesterday, I am here for these jokes. I want to get these jokes off. I want to see Brady win just so that way he has to get the trophy handed to him by Roger Goodell as Roger Goodell looks at him like, you mother, you sir, you. Like, I want to see that in his face, just like, I suspended you for 4 games and you still got back here, you son. Like, I just want to see that. Like I said, there's only one thing in the history of the NFL that I think is more awkward than what this whole Brady-Goodell thing could be, and that was back in the 80s when the Raiders were in Los Angeles, because Al Davis always had the propensity to just be like, yeah, I don't like playing here. I'm going to move. Where are you going to move to? I don't know. L.A.? L.A. sound good? You're in Oakland. You're going to move to L.A.? Uh-huh. You're not moving to L.A. Oh, I'm moving to L.A. We're going to sue you. That's fine. I'm still moving to L.A. And then he moved to L.A. And what happened when they were in L.A.? Super Bowl. So Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner at the time, had to hand him the trophy. That was pretty awkward. And this thing with Brady and Goodell and Kraft, because it's not just Brady. Belichick got, in trouble for it. Kraft got fined for it. They lost another draft pick. So this is all kind of intertwined with all of them. And I don't know if you saw what Robert Kraft did when he won the AFC Championship, when they interviewed him after the game. He basically, told the crowd, for many reasons, and then he paused, this win is really important to us, getting back to the Super Bowl.
And for those many reasons that Robert Kraft was pausing so much, you can...
It was Deflategate.
It was Deflategate, and he might have had a little consumption of something.
I mean, that's it. You do what you want. That's fine. Like,
little consumption of something. There.
You made it to your 7th Super Bowl in the last 16 years.
You might as well celebrate.
7 Super Bowls in 16 years, and 9, I think, total. I think
9 all time. 9 all time. That's the most, I think, in NFL history. I
don't think Kraft was there for the 85 one.
I don't think he was.
But I think he might have been there for 96. But either way, he's been to at least 7 Super Bowls as an owner. So he's, a Hall of Fame owner because, well, he's, found out to get, the 2 best coach and quarterback there might ever have been. But this whole thing with Goodell, right? So, like, I don't necessarily blame him as much. I get it. I get that basically you have to kind of put on a, good face and everything else like that. And it's the week before the Super Bowl. So you're going to have to go on some media places. So, he goes on with Colin Cowherd and has all these, responsibilities that he has to do. He's going to ask him, oh, Tom Brady, oh, Thursday Night Football. And his job is basically just to be like, nope, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's that meme with the dog in the middle of the fire. It's like, this is fine. Everything's on fire around you. It's like, no. Everything's fine. We're good. And honestly, if the Patriots win, while that will be awkward, it's not going to be bad for the NFL. I mean, the NFL went through everything with Adrian Peterson, Ray Rice, Greg Hardy. Joe Mixon's coming into the league. Like, they have all these things. Didn't really hurt the NFL as far as, as watching it. Like, yeah, the ratings might have been down. Not
only that, you had the thing with Colin Kaepernick this year, too.
Colin Kaepernick.
Which turned off a lot of people.
It turned off people, but it didn't make the NFL any less, watchable. Like, the games would make it unwatchable if you have bad games all the time.
Yeah, and especially the playoffs this year. The playoffs were bad.
Yeah, the playoffs were
terrible.
Yeah, but we still watched them because we all hoped they would be good. Yeah, they ended up being bad and everything else like that. But we thought going to the AFC and NFC championship games that would be a great game because, now you got the Steelers and the Patriots. You got some offenses in there. And, now you got Aaron Rodgers and the Atlanta offense. Oh, this is going to be great games. No, they were both crap. And we're thinking the Super Bowl is going to be good because you got 2 offenses in New England and Arizona or in Atlanta that, can put up a lot of points. We're thinking the game is going to be like some 42-35 game. It could be 21-17. It could be a defensive game, and it could be a terrible game where it's 45-10. We have no idea what it's going to be. But we want to hope it's going to be good, and that's the thing with the NFL. We always hope for good things. We always hope that, things are going to go well, because the thing with the NFL, the thing it's all based around with every single thing is parity, right? Because you basically want the teams to all have a chance to think that they can win. I mean, yeah, you knew that the Browns weren't going to win the Super Bowl. You knew that the Niners weren't going to win the Super Bowl. You knew that something like the Chargers weren't going to win the Super Bowl. Well, maybe the Chargers you at least had some kind of hope with. But, there was teams that we were like, okay, Jacksonville, you're not winning. But there's another team that you could probably say like there was no chance of them. The Rams.
The Rams, probably the Chicago Bears.
The Bears, yeah. Like there's certain teams that was like, okay, cool, you're not winning, stuff like that. And then you get some surprise teams too, like the Bengals who have made the playoffs recently. They got knocked out and they were a bad team this year. You had the Cardinals.
You had the Texans make the playoffs again.
The Texans. You had the Cardinals who were a playoff team last year get knocked out of the playoffs. Like, you get some surprises every now and then with the NFL, and that's what you want, right? That's the thing that makes everything hopeful, right? It's the NBA where you basically have the Warriors and Cavaliers and you just wait until June for them to play again, see who's going to win the title. Then you get every now and then some subplots that come in there. Oh, Isaiah Thomas is good. Oh, LeBron James is mad. Oh, Vince Carter can still dunk. Like, you always have these little minor things that pop up, but it's just two major things, two major teams that are going to win. In the end, the NFL, there's like 15 to 20 teams that you could think have at least a chance of making the playoffs, and we saw with either the Packers, the Saints, as long as you're in there, you could have a chance of winning. Steelers did it back in 2005 where they were the wild card. Like, you have these things where once you make the playoffs, that's all you really need. So whatever Goodell says, good, bad, indifferent, everything else like that, we're still going to watch, and it's not like they're going to fire him, the owners. They like him because he's a human meat shield. He's a piñata that everyone gets to whack at. So, he's not going to get fired. We're going to laugh at these things, and then in a couple of days, we're just going to move on to the next.
Yeah, and this is what Goodell said. This is the actual quote when he was asked about the quality of games and if Goodell, if he said that the games were really good to watch. This is what he says. Quote, "We're more than just optics here. We're into facts." And on that note...
But what do you mean we're into facts? Like, go to the thing, like...
He says we're more into just optics, we're into facts, and go to the same statistics, because you're right about the quality of games on Thursday night, but there are actually less penalties, less turnovers. Almost every barometer, I don't know how to say that. Barometer. The quality of games is better on Thursday night. Obviously, some games aren't going to have to be competitive. They will have a dominance. You are going to get that. So this is his whole.
So wait, hold on. His thing was basically saying that like there's less penalties and less turnovers.
Yeah, that's
therefore
what he said. Because of that, it's more quality. No,
I mean, if you just run the ball for 3 yards every single play and go 3 and out because a 4th and 1, but there's no penalties, there's no turnovers, doesn't mean it's a good game. That means it's a boring game. Like that's not exactly how that works. Like, I see what you did there, Roger, but that's not exactly how. Yeah, that's not how that goes.
I like how he tried to use that as his argument. I like that. That was actually a really fair argument too. But I don't see Thursday Night Football like going away anytime soon.
No,
because as long as not only that they have a contract with these networks. I think that runs to 2017.
Cash money.
2017. The
cash money. That's basically how this goes because. Forget about the fact that it's like, oh, we're shoving this down your throat and maybe you want to do less because, you want it to only be Sunday night and Monday night. You want these 2 days and you're trying to, like, not oversaturate people with Thursday night and Saturday night and Wednesday night and Tuesday night and Thursday night, like all these things. But forget about the game being good, bad, or whatever. It's on Thursday. And what happens about, call it 12, 13 times every half, what do we go to? Commercials. And what do the commercials make? Money. Because they have all these commercials, be it for Budweiser or for Dr. Pepper or for whatever, like McDonald's, whatever the commercial is, they have to pay the NFL. And they sign these giant contracts with them. And if you lose these games, you lose those revenue, you lose those advertisings, which makes the money go down, which makes the owners less rich, which makes them mad, which makes them not want to do other things. It's a nice little circle that we go around and around it.
Yeah, I think people really forget about the advertising part of the game And I think that's the reason why, we have so many commercials.
Right.
And the game with a lot of the most notable commercials is the Super Bowl, and it would be something to see Roger Goodell handing the trophy to Tom Brady. I think that will be technically. I think that if it does happen, because I still think the Falcons have a chance in this game.
Oh, they have a really good chance.
If that does happen, I think that's going to be one of the most photographic memories in sports, not only this year, but I think like in a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take our first break here, and we're not going to talk about Roger Goodell, even though we could make a whole show about him. We're going to actually talk about the Miami Dolphins. They're kind of like in a situation here because of the Matt Moore hit.
They made a boo-boo.
Yeah, we'll just say they made a boo-boo. We'll tell you how they made that boo-boo when we get back to the Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right. Well, it looks like the Miami Dolphins have been warned about the concussion protocol and the aftermath of Matt Moore's hit in the wildcard game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And man, oh man, I remember when Matt Moore took this hit by Bud Dupree. What a hit that he suffered. He literally got knocked out.
Yeah.
He got torched. He got smoked. Any type of adjective you can think of, that's what he got. He got lit on fire. Anything. Like, the NFL was really warned about this because they really thought maybe Matt Moore suffered a concussion. He actually went back into the game, if you don't remember that. I was actually surprised that he went back into the game because, man, what a hit that was.
You were surprised he went back. Why are you surprised that he went back into the game?
Well, not like right away. I'm not surprised he went back in the game at all. I'm just saying like they're like, there's nothing wrong with you. Go back in there. It's like they didn't even get time to check on it.
I mean, yes, I understand. That you want to basically be prudent in that sense, and we have all these things with concussions, and we care about concussions, sort of, and we also want to basically, do what's best for the players. Also, with all of that being said, they were on their second-string quarterback in Matt Moore. They don't have a third-string quarterback. I mean, they do. They can use people who were quarterbacks in high school. Like, if you go on Miami Dolphins depth chart, they don't have a third-string quarterback listed.
Well, a lot of teams don't have a third-string quarterback anyway. A lot of teams don't.
So, it was one of those things where, what are you going to do? You're going to go to your third-string quarterback? Are you going to rely on somebody else? No, you're just going to go with Matt Moore, and it's like, he has a concussion. Nah, it's fine. How many fingers am I holding up? 17? Whatever, go into the game. It's fine. And, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. But at the same time, I'm never going to be shocked if the NFL does something that's kind of unethical and stuff like that. Like, you're supposed to have those, like, independent doctors, but, I mean, you and I and everyone else could see it's like, oh, that looked vicious. Oh, he's back. Okay, that seems fast, but okay. And the NFL basically was just like, basically told him, stop doing that. That's not what we have those medical doctors on the sideline for. That's not what they're there for. They're supposed to basically protect the people from themselves, and you're not allowing them to do that.
Yeah, and because Matt Moore was bleeding from the mouth after he took this hit or sometime during the game, he was allowed to return to the game too quickly, the league said in this statement that was released, I believe, a couple days ago. And then in this letter released by the league, it was co-signed by Dr. Hunt Badger, who is a co-chair of the NFL Head, Neck, and Spine Committee, and Dr. Tom Mayer, who is a medical director for the NFLPA. And they determined that the protocol was not strictly following this, and the letter advised that the Dolphins must engage their staff in a full review of the protocol and conduct, and to get themselves more educated on this issue here in the concussion protocol, so to speak. So they won't do this again, because if this happens again, they're probably going to get fined or lose a draft pick. How kind of like how the Seahawks are kind of like in right now with their situation of not reporting Richard Sherman's injury, and
they might get a second-round pick doc from them. Yeah,
exactly. So this is basically just a warning. And, to your point, I did say I was shocked he went back to the game. But, you do have a valid point, Anthony, but that they don't have a third-string quarterback. And a
viable one. Like they
don't they don't have one that they can fully. They don't have one that plays the quarterback
They
position.
don't have one that they trust, basically. They don't have a quarterback that they can trust that would be their third-string quarterback. They barely trust Matt Moore, but he's been at least decent. So they're like, okay, that's fine. We're going to go with you. And then you were telling me before we even started this whole thing that the NFL basically had something where they reported that the concussions were down, right? That they had like a drop in concussions.
Yeah, and in the reports, there was data released by the NFL today. Mm-hmm. It said that concussions in the NFL dropped by 11.3% in 2016.
Good. Right.
There were 244 reported concussions during practices, games, preseason, regular season.
Right.
This year, and that is down from 275 in 2015. But that number is still higher than it was in 2014, which had 206, 2013, which had 229. So it's a trend that the NFL attributes in part to an increase of self-reporting by players as awareness of symptoms grows. So, yeah, I can see that. But concussions in the regular season games dropped by 16 to 167. So, this all kind of... This report comes out literally a couple of days before the news about the Miami Dolphins receiving this this letter from the committee, the health and committee team. I forgot the name of it, but from this team of doctors that work for the NFL.
So they basically had something where, because the Dolphins thing was first, right? The Matt Moore thing was first.
The Matt Moore thing.
So the Matt Moore thing, the Matt Moore thing was first, and then a day or two later, they're like, "Oh, also look at 11% down. Hey, look at this. Don't worry about the Matt Moore thing. No. Look, 11% down. Look. That's better. Look at that one." Kind of thing to basically, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, kind of thing. But with the NFL, I mean, look, the NFL is a violent sport, man. Like, what do you want from them? Like, you can only do something like when you're objective to basically run like head first almost into other people for a living. When your job is to collide, make other people feel pain, you're gonna have concussion problems. Like that's just kind of the system that they live in, right? Like I'm not trying to make excuses for the NFL. I'm just saying that like if you think that like concussions are just gonna go down, that's not exactly how that stuff's gonna go. Like they're basically gonna have to deal with these things, and it's went down from last year. It's maybe last year was just like such a giant spike, as you talked about how. It was like 209 and 220, and then it was 275. So it was just like a giant spike. And maybe that was the first time that you had a lot more people actually declaring all these things, right? You had players declaring it. You had people retiring. You had stuff like Calvin Johnson retiring because he was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I mean, we saw Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, he's contemplating
basically, thinking about it. Now, he's probably not going to. It's probably one of those things where it's like you just lost a game. You got a lot of emotions, and you're just like, yeah, maybe I don't come back. But at least one of the things he talked about was the fact that you have the NFL and all these concussion problems, and he doesn't want to basically have those issues going forward. I mean, he's already got the, body problems as far as like shoulder and legs and everything else. He's been hit a bunch of times. He had that motorcycle accident. His body hurts enough. And then you mix in the concussions thing. It's something that scares a lot of people, understandably so. So maybe this year they went down a little bit compared to last year. Maybe last year was just like a huge spike because that time you had a bunch of people declaring things, and now maybe it got a little bit better. But you also now have the thing with the NFL where, they're monitoring these things. I'm not saying they as the NFL. I'm saying we as a public, Twitter, whatever else. You can basically pinpoint all these things where, that looked like they had a concussion, and you can just like jot that down as a tally mark. And at the end of the season, it's like, oh, you had all these ones didn't declare as concussions, but it looked like a concussion. And to be fair, we don't really even know what concussions are. Like, we're still kind of in the, early processes of actually figuring out what in the world a concussion actually is. Like, yeah, I know it's when you can have potential problems later on in life with CTE and stuff like that, but that's not 100% going to happen. There's things where you can get hit a lot, have concussions. You have Troy Aikman, Steve Young retire from concussions, and they seem fine as far in the booth. Now, maybe in 20 years it changes. But
have we seen? They seem fine.
Right now, yes.
Them, yeah.
And that could change in 10 years. All of a sudden, they could have some brain problems. Then you got someone like Junior Seau, who's had problems, once he retired, and then he, took his own, he died 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that.
I think it was 3 years ago, and then he, took his own life. So
I mean, we're still kind of learning about concussions, and the fact that it went down is a good thing. It's like really positive in the sense it's like, maybe this game is becoming a little bit more safe because we as a public just look at the NFL differently now, right? Like, we do these things where before, ESPN, not to throw any shade at ESPN, they had that segment Jacked Up, where it's basically like you see like the hardest hits.
Yeah, I remember that. Yes,
you see the hardest hits from each week, and we love that. And now, if you YouTube that, it's like, ooh, that's not a good idea. They probably should have done that. But different sensibilities for different years. Like, that's how that goes, right? You kind of watch things from back in the day, and it's like stuff that was funny then isn't funny now. Like, Eddie Murphy's one of my favorite comics of all time. If you watch Delirious, it's a little bit different when you watch it now than you watch it in the 1980s. So
not only that, but watching Eddie Murphy Raw is a lot different.
Raw, the same thing. Yeah, both of them, right?
Now,
yeah. So, I mean, like, you just have different sensibilities. Even, like, Jacked Up was probably, like 2005, something like that. So even like 10, 12 years ago, we just have different sensibilities about things. Who knows what it's going to be in 2027, 10 years from now. But for the NFL, like, I give them this. They're at least trying, right? They're trying to curb these things. They're trying to make it better. They're trying to do things that are better, at least from a PR perspective. Is it perfect? No. Is it ever going to be perfect? No. Because, like I said, your job is to collide with people at high speeds.
Okay, and I do think if you guys want to know more about concussions and CTE, I actually recommend watching the movie Concussion with Will Smith. Have you seen that movie, Anthony?
No, I haven't seen that movie, no. But yeah, you have stuff like that.
Yeah, it kind of talks about how Will Smith's character, this is actually a true story. I forgot the actual guy's name.
Benedict Malu.
Yeah, Benedict Malu. And then he kind of...
Dr. Benedict Malu, to be fair.
Yeah, he actually lives literally like 45 minutes away from where we do our show at. He lives in Lodi.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then he did all this research of like concussions in football, and then like the effects that players endure like years after playing, and that's how he comes up with CTE and it shows all that and the aftermath and all that. And it's funny because Roger Goodell is actually portrayed in that movie by Luke Wilson, which he did pretty good in that part. But I actually recommend to watch that movie, and I actually want to leave with this little fact here that, according to this report of the NFL and this data, concussions on kickoff returns dropped by 50% after, the league tweaked the rules to make it safer, because you remember they moved the touchback of the kickoff from the 20-yard line to the 25th, and they wanted to do that to have fewer returns. So the NFL recorded 17 concussions on kickoff returns when there were 20 in 2015. So it reduced by 1.8% in 2016. So it looks like the concussions are heading in the right direction, so to speak, but they're never going to go away. They're never going to go away. They're always going to... If you play in a violent game like football and you're going to go into a lot of car crashes, literally for like a 3-hour game, and you're playing 60 minutes, but it lasts 3 hours, there's going to have some effects, and they're just not going to go away. And I get that they're going to try to make the game safer, and they have all these rules where you can't really have like a head-to-head hit. That's fine, but I just feel like the game is always going to evolve even faster, stronger, and all these concussions, I don't think these concussions are ever going to go away.
No.
But I just want to leave you that on that note. But we're going to take our last break here. We're actually going to talk about one of the sports broadcasting icons, so to speak.
Yep.
In Brent Musburger. And we're going to get a little bit of a really we're going to get a little bit of a short story with Jim Harbaugh here when we get back to the Guns to Meet Concepts football podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Well, welcome back to the Guns to Meet Concepts football podcast. And one of, I want to say one of the most notable faces in ESPN, especially in college football, Brent Musburger. His play-by-play career will end with ESPN and ABC at the end of January, and it's actually his last game that he will call will be January 31st, and a college basketball matchup between the Kentucky Wildcats and the Georgia Bulldogs at Rupp Arena. And Musburg said that he was leaving, to be with his family in Vegas. And he's actually going to start a sports betting network. I believe it is called the Vegas Sports Information Network. I believe so. And you had something to one of the most notable things, Anthony, from Brent Musburger was the Joe Mixon situation there, and then you kind of had a really good perspective, or you said it the best.
Well, no,
I can do it.
Well, so the thing with Mixon is he did what he did. Terrible, awful, vicious. You saw the video. There's no real getting around it. Like, obviously, don't ever do that, and you're going to get punished. And he got punished, and now it's just a debate of how long it was, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether he should have been kicked off the team, and all that stuff. And with Musburger, it wasn't so much what he said. I think it was like the defiance of how he said it, right? Because even after that, he was just kind of like, hissing back and forth, a thing like that. Because he basically said, like, look, the kid did what he did. I hope he learned from it. I hope he's, gets a second chance in the pros, which people kind of were like, hey, don't defend the dude. That's not necessarily a nice thing. Like, kind of like, just say you're sorry. And he's like, no, I'm not saying I'm sorry. I'm a 77-year-old man. I'm not going to apologize for this. Like, I said what I said. You know what I meant. I'm not trying to say he's a saint. I'm just saying that, like, hopefully he's learned from this and can be a better player. But he was like hissing back at it, right? Like the last thing, he was just like, I hope he does better. Second down and 9 was basically like the kind of last thing about it. And that's the last thing we've basically seen from Musburger. Now, with all that said, Musburger is a legitimately giant of the industry. Like, he is like one of the top, like Al Michaels, Keith Jackson. Like, he's one of those dudes like on those like Mount Rushmore of just like, if anything big was happening, if anything in the sense of like, like that Boston College throw, the Hail Flutie thing, that was him. He was doing the NBA. He was doing tennis. He was doing like all these other things, right? There was just like this whole total, anything that was an important event, he was at. And now, to be fair, they say like this isn't the reason why he's gone. Okay. But, it may not be the full reason, but I think it's at least in part because you had people basically calling for his removal, right? Because he hit on something, domestic violence, that has a very, important place right now as far as, people's perspective, because you have all these things, be it Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, whatever, this basically become a focal point, something that we actually see now up close and personal. Right, Ray Rice had a video, he had a video, so it's not like something you can say like, oh, well, we don't know. No, you saw and you know what happened. And he touched on that, and he wasn't genuflecting. He wasn't basically being someone that was like totally apologetic and like, I want, this guy to, burn in hell kind of thing like that. He defended him a little bit, and it made people uncomfortable, and this has ended up happening. But with all of that said, like I said, titan, giant, huge person in this industry. And while this isn't necessarily the way he wants to go out, like, also remember all the great things he had. Also remember everything that he's done with ESPN and before ESPN, before any of this actually happened. He was a big, 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 big deal before ESPN was even a thing.
Yeah, and I remember one of his most notable moments at ESPN was when during the national championship game, I think it was Alabama, and I forgot the team they were playing. It was one of the titles that Alabama won, and AJ McCarron was the quarterback. And do you remember who AJ McCarron's wife was?
Oh, well, girlfriend, yeah, Catherine Webb. Yeah, no, he had the thing with Catherine Webb.
He had the thing with Catherine Webb. He literally drooled all over during the broadcast. Well,
right.
Not really, but
he also did that, I think, with Jen Serger, too. Like, he did these things where, and that, honestly, probably if you did that now, he'd probably get a lot more flack for it, but that was the thing around 2009 or something like that. Again, decent amount of time ago, different sensibilities for different times.
That's almost 10 years ago. Almost.
Different sensibilities for a different time. And, like I said, he's just, yes, the ending, maybe not the best. Also, one of the greats.
Yeah, I think he's one of the greats, not just in college football, but I just think in sports in general. He just has a certain quality that you really can't replicate.
Right.
And, Musburger did tell the Associated Press that he planned to move to Vegas to help his family start a sports handicapping business, but it seems like ESPN confirmed another report that Musburger was starting the Vegas Sports Information Network, which I believe he said. So he's going to start that up. And the Vegas Sports Information Network is a sports betting website. Not just a website, but like a network, so to speak. So, I kind of like the idea of it, and I'm actually kind of interested to see how it will play out. And for the final story of the day, I'm not sure if you saw this, Anthony, but I did like last night, and I just thought, I have to talk about this on the show. With Jim Harbaugh, we all know he's crazy. We all know Jim Harbaugh is crazy, but he had a really feel-good moment. Well, and I would say, the meeting between this certain gentleman was a feel-good moment. The first time they met was very painful.
Right.
And Harbaugh tweeted a photo of himself and Dan McGavin, who is a man that was driving a mail truck that broke Harbaugh's leg 50 years ago when he was in first grade. And Harbaugh, the way that he told it was that, this happened in Iowa, where his father, Jack, was an assistant coach with the Iowa Hawkeyes a long time ago. So Harbaugh ran to the street with his older brother, John, who is now the coach of the Ravens, and collided with an oncoming truck. And Harbaugh told reporters this earlier this fall. John and I were going to high school. I'm sorry. John and I were going to school our first day at Roosevelt Elementary. First day, we moved there and found some kids to play after. I was trying to put my jacket on over my head all at once. I was just following him, and he crossed the street, busy street there. The next thing I know, I woke up in a hospital bed. I got hit by a mail truck, broke my leg in 2 places, had a cast on. I was in the first grade, so it's not really clear how these two reunited, but it seems like they kind of have. It's a little bit better. It gone a little bit better than the first time they met. Yeah, a lot better. Yeah, and Harbaugh, I think, endorsed McGivern's new business in life insurance sales. So that's a. I don't know how they meet. Like, how do you confront someone like that?
I don't know.
Yeah, how would it be like, hey, you remember? Like the Harbaugh's just say, hey, do you remember me? You're the guy.
Did you hit me with your car?
Like, did you run me over that one time?
Right.
Like, how did this meeting even happen?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think that's something I want to find out.
Harbaugh is just a madman, and he probably just was like, oh yeah, I remember I got into a car accident. Hey, go through the files. See what the car was. See who owns that car now. See who that person is. I want to talk to them. Like, he probably just popped in his head.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like, hey, I know what I'm going to do. I want to meet the guy that drove me. That rode me over.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Time. I know, but I just want to leave on that story.
It's Harbaugh.
It's just Harbaugh.
It's Harbaugh.
It's Harbaugh. I want to get a Harbaugh story in there, and
right.
Every time Harbaugh's in the news, it's always something that's.
Oh, yeah.
That's not really surprising. I remember when he went to the Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Remember when they had a little promotion thing?
Oh, yeah, and he wanted the full deal.
Yeah, he wanted the full deal. He even got a glass of milk.
Yeah.
So, Harbaugh just being Harbaugh. But, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. And that concludes our show, Anthony. Of course, we're going to be back tomorrow.
Yes, we are.
We're going to talk about anything in the next 24 hours. We might talk about the Senior Bowl. Don't know about that.
Right.
We'll probably try to talk about the Pro Bowl, the players that we're looking forward to. Anything that happens in the past 24 hours, we will talk about it tomorrow. I think Ben's going to join us tomorrow.
Maybe. I'm not sure if he comes back on Friday. He might, but yeah.
I'm not sure, but we'll definitely be here.
Yep.
And, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Goes to Meet Concepts Football Podcast. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And you guys have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.